According to research, coffee may be linked to a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, improved brain health, and has 0 calories unless you start adding things to it. Coffee is one of the most popular drinks in America, but coffee houses have brewed more than just sips over the centuries. We'll learn the beverage's history of shaping revolutions and sparking conversations. If you walk into a coffee shop today, you might see businessmen and women grabbing a pick-me-up before work, students studying together, or an author writing their next book. This community of people from all walks of life has always been part of the makeup of coffee shops, even as far back as the 1500s. Historian Raffi Andonian joins me with more on the colorful history of coffee houses just in time for National Coffee Day this Friday. All right.
So the week started off right with the coffee.
Yeah, there's history in everything, right? Let's back up to some of your history. You were born in LA, and so there's lots of history around there, as we know, the whole story of Hollywood.
Of course.
But you've always been attracted to the story of things.
I have, and that's part of the reason I traveled around the country and moved around the country, working at different historic sites like the Gettysburg Battlefield, the Martin Luther King home, Los Alamos, where the atomic bomb was created, which of course is getting attention again with the Oppenheimer movie, and eventually started my celebrity historian ventures, doing all the things, including on TV.
Yeah, in fact, you were like a historical interpreter at the age of 19.
I was. I started at age 19 doing tours and programs on historic sites. At Gettysburg is where I started my first time, and built forward from there. I still do different historical programs today, doing tours, sometimes behind the scenes, doing them for companies, doing speaking gigs, different things, and of course sharing history on television. This is actually number 100 for me today.
Making history today, your 100th TV
time
appearance.
on TV appearance, that's right.
Wow, okay, so now you really are the celebrity historian, which by the way, you got that name. You thought if Dr. Oz was the celebrity doctor, you may as well be the celebrity historian.
That's right, I stole it from Dr. Oz. It was a joke we made with a producer behind the scenes, and then we put it on air, and then it kind of caught fire from there.
There we go. Okay, Friday, National Coffee Day. And it's interesting, like I said, everything has a history, including coffee. I remember back in the 80s, an employee came to me and said, hey, do you invest in the stock market? I said, I do a couple of things. I really don't understand what I'm doing. But he said, you should invest in this coffee place. And he had just moved from a place called Seattle. He goes, you should invest in this coffee place. And I went, coffee? Who invests in coffee? You get a free cup at the bank, right? I'm not thinking, we have our stuff at home, and that's about it. And so I put a little money in, and fast forward, there's this thing called Starbucks on every corner.
There's a Starbucks.
Yeah, there's Starbucks, all right.
Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you, what, that really ties in really well because first of all, the coffee at the bank. The reason that banks give coffee a lot of times is because you kind of stick around a while. It creates community, and banks are all about creating a community, right? They want to be a community player, so you feel comfortable putting your money with them or getting loans from them. And similarly, what Starbucks did, though, is they took it to scale, because if you listen to what Starbucks leadership says, they'll tell you that we're not really selling the coffee, we're selling the community space, we're selling the social connections.
Right.
And that's what they were so successful in doing, and that's why you see so many of them in so many neighborhoods, sometimes multiple times in the neighborhood, because you've got to have it nearby in the corner if you can sell more than just a product and sell the community gathering space.
Yeah, so there's the big guys, but then there's also people who put their own stamp on it. For example, slow pokes and slow vibes. Today, with the little rain outside, this is a time to have a little slow pokes and slow vibes right here.
The local coffee maker,
yeah, the local coffee shop, but it's community. That's that key word. And
it is, and Slowpokes talks about that too. They talk about community and values, and that's really important because again, that brings together an idea that's historically been there for centuries, and we're still playing it out today. Is nothing new.
Yeah, let's go back to the history of coffee, because I know we talk a lot about tea, right? And of course, how tea played a role in the revolution in terms of the Boston Tea Party and all that type of stuff. But coffee had its space too.
It did, absolutely. Now, in the United States, of course, we drank tea when we were English, but then when the Boston Tea Party happened, we shifted and we said, no, we don't really like the tea anymore. We went more toward coffee. Now, to be fair, coffee and tea were popular across the English Empire, but tea was seen as more of an English thing, despite the popularity of coffee, also kind of burgeoning in London at that point. Now, coffee houses where many famous things happen. There's a famous coffee house in New York City. There's a famous coffee house in Williamsburg, Virginia, where some of the protests to the Stamp Act crisis happened. And so, they were off the porch, kind of screaming about the Stamp Act, having meetings. And at that coffee house, among other places, you would have people of different social classes come in there, debate the politics of the day, share news.
Let's back up. Okay, so there's coffee with the Ottoman Empire, way before the new country was even founded. And it was like liquor and bars were off limits to most practicing Muslims, of course, right?
That's right.
So it's like, where else could people gather? And then, as you just mentioned, and it was everybody from different classes.
That's right, and that's part of the reason the Ottoman Empire began to put pressure and ban coffee houses at different points because they didn't like that it eroded sort of the social structures, right? So it made it more egalitarian. Now, Germans also had that. Frederick the Great was someone that he was really worried about coffee, in part because of it hurt the beer industry in Germany.
Oh.
That was a big concern of his, and beer was seen as healthier than coffee.
And now they
by
have
them.
coffee-flavored beer.
They do. Now that's
right.
Coffee-flavored all kinds of things. Now, if you want to kind of take a tour around the world, in England, it catches fire too. Coffee catches fire in the 17th, 18th century. You have 2,000 coffee houses in England over the course of the 2 centuries, in London, actually, I say specifically. And there, which is a particularly hierarchical structure of society, there certainly was concerns about the erosion. In fact, let me give you a quick example. Charles II, King Charles II, who was a son of Charles I. Remember, Charles I was beheaded. So Charles II was a little paranoid about all these plebs going in there and having these ideas. It was a news hub. There was newspaper reporters writing from there, rumors that can circulate there. So he's kind of concerned about what can come out of there.
Revolutions can come out of there.
He actually tried to ban them and put pressure on them, had spies in there, because he was concerned about quote-unquote false news. Does that sound familiar today?
Oh, yeah, little fake news coming out of the coffee
400
houses.
years ago. So this stuff is nothing new. Now, give you a couple ideas that came out of there. London Stock Exchange started out of coffee houses. Lloyd's of London, the insurance market, started out of coffee houses. And they had penny universities in Oxford, which were, you would go there, gather, exchange ideas. Again, penny universities, because you get a cheap cup of coffee and you get to exchange ideas. And so in Oxford, this is taking place. And it gives you an idea. Now, you wouldn't do that necessarily at a tavern, because a tavern is where you go to get drunk. At the coffee house, it's more intellectual.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so the news of the day. All right, fast forward to modern coffee. And, a lot of times that modern coffee was, as I said, the free coffee at the bank, or it was like your kind of like your Denny's, your IHOPs, your breakfast places and stuff like that. But now it's coffee all day, and it's more sophisticated.
That's right. It can absolutely be more sophisticated, and I think that borrows on the themes of the days when you would share these intellectual ideas, like at Oxford. Because think about it today. A lot of times, if you're going to do a business meeting or a writer, or you're going to do an ideas meeting, you're not going to go to a bar. You're going to go to a coffee house.
Yeah, the bar is where you go and you celebrate the deal after it's done.
That's right. That's where you go. Exactly.
Yeah, but you got to be sober to figure it out.
That's right. So we do still kind of separate those two. Those are both community gathering spaces potentially, right? But we separate the use of them. And I think that what you're talking about here, in that sophisticated manner, we do see the coffee house like that today. Now, the smaller craft coffees now also care about the craft behind it, right? And the values behind it. We even gave a term, the barista. Who knew what a barista was before, right? And then all of a sudden, yes, you have that and crafting what you want. And when you go up and order, and I'm just going to ask a couple of things here, just 2 things I'm going to ask. When you go up and order, know what you want. Don't do this. Go, oh my gosh. Do you have a, okay, can I take the sugar or syrup out, or maybe a quarter of a shot of syrup? No, make it a half a shot of a syrup. And okay, so that's my one thing. Just know what you want when you go up there. The other thing is when you go and you're acting like this truly is your living room, look, you can be there for 30 minutes working on some stuff with your laptop open. But not for 5 hours.
Don't stay there all day. We're just looking for a seat to have a quick cup, and yeah, it's not your living room.
A lot of people talk about coffee, and Frank Sinatra is someone that sings about coffee, and I love that his song connects to the history that we're talking about.
Which song was that one?
It's called the Coffee Song. I'll give you a line from it. It goes like this. Now, there's an awful lot of coffee in Brazil. You won't find any cherry juice because they've got to fill that quota. Down in Brazil, there's an awful lot of coffee. No tea, no tomato juice. You'll see no potato juice because the planters down in Santos are saying no, no, no. The politician's daughter. The politician's daughter was accused of drinking water and was fined a great big $50 bill. There's an awful lot of coffee in Brazil.
Okay, that song needs to come back and they need to play it.
But look what he's talking about.
The
planters in Santos, the special interest, that reminds me of Germany, right? Trying to protect the local industry. The politician's daughter drinking water is the wrong thing and she's fine. That reminds me of the kinds of things we're talking about, exactly. You can't find tea, you can't find potato juice, you can't find tomato juice. That's what he's singing about. It makes it in pop culture, even in the 20th century.
Frank Sinatra was also a historian and a singer. All right, thanks to Slowpokes today. We got they got food there. This is the purple rain. We're gonna taste the purple rain. See what's going. All right. For more information on Raffi Andonian or Slowpokes Coffee, visit greatdayhouston.com. This is really good. It's cold coffee. All right. Happy Centennial, Raffi, your 100th TV experience. I'm glad you got to share it with us. Have a great day, everybody.